Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to the T2 Hubcast with me, Martin Johnson.
And me, Spencer Locker.
Good morning, Spencer.
Good morning, Martin.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well.
Oh, hey.
But no more said about that.
You've got to be one better, haven't you?
So these podcasts are fast turning into mine and yours banter, secret banter, where the listeners are going, they haven't even started yet and they're laughing again.
Yeah. What's it all about? What's it all about? It's like you're getting all giddy and unnecessary.
We'll have to launch our comedy show next year.
Yeah.
Spencer, good morning to you.
Yeah.
Miserable day today.
Yeah.
February, it's early February. Spring is on the horizon. There is hope. There is optimism. Hopefully COVID will continue to reduce. Vaccines will roll out. And by the summer, mate, we'll all be golden having a beer in the sun, right?
Yeah.
But until then, we will plough on and we will continue doing what we do.
Yeah, certainly.
So, Spence, you've surprised me today. I've walked in the office. You've said, get in the podcast room. We're talking about something.
Yeah.
And like usual, I don't really like to over plan or... So what is it that's on your mind and what is today's topic?
Right. Well, so basically, it's on the back of... remember a podcast we did not so long ago about resolutions and goals, the differences between resolutions and goals. Yeah. And we explored that. And I don't want to sort of rehash it and go back over it. But it got me thinking because...
Sorry, Spence, just to recap. On that podcast, it was right after the new year.
Yeah.
And we talked about the, New Year's resolutions. Are they artificial or beneficial?
Yeah.
And we just basically talked, didn't we, about the difference between a resolution when you are absolute resolute, you are going to do this, the pressure that comes with that, the margin for error is so great that actually people don't do it. And when they do renege on it, it's like it's gone. Whereas we were saying, set goals, give yourself a little wriggle room to fail or to maybe not hit them, but stay on task and we go again.
Yeah.
So we was trying to differentiate, wasn't we, between goals and resolutions, really?
Yeah. And that informed a conversation I had with my eldest, because we're getting to that point where, we're all teachers now, aren't we?
We're all homeschooling.
We're all homeschoolers, yeah. So, I was having a conversation with my eldest and he was, I was doing the dad thing, but just checking in. Son, you're at a certain age, you turn 15 next month. Have you any idea what you fancy doing when you leave school? Because I've made a conscious decision not to sort of nail them down, because things change. As we know, we change, we develop, we get more informed, we get influenced and things like that. So, yeah, when he was younger and he wanted to be a Royal Marine Commando or a zoologist.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah. So, and just these regular check-ins every so often, just to see, not pin him down, but just trying to inform him that, you know what, I don't expect you to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life at 14 years old. It's not realistic. However, when you understand that mindset that, when I get qualifications, the qualifications aren't necessarily going to be set up to go down a certain road. The more qualifications you've got, the better set you are for you get choices, don't you? You get options. So I asked him about that, and we were talking about things changing, and he sort of said, well, I fancy being an engineer. And I'm thinking, well, why do you want to be an engineer?
Now, just for the listeners, you're an I say you're an engineer.
Yeah.
You've spent your career being an engineer in the RAF.
Yeah, that's correct.
He knows that.
Yeah.
He's heard you speak about it. He understands that at a base level what an engineer is. So the question, therefore, is does he want to be an engineer because you were?
That's exactly it.
Or and then when you question him, he's got no idea actually why.
Yeah, and that's exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So we were talking about sense of purpose. We're talking about influences. We're talking about nature versus nurture. Me with my 14-year-old son talking about these things, and he's talking about things, seeing people on social media going, I want to do that. That's who I want to be. Not I would like to, I use that as an influence or a motivator to be me. I want to be them. And that got me thinking about goals, about people who set themselves goals by seeing people on social media.
Do you know what, Spence? I know that this gets your goat, right? I know one of your passionate views is around the influence of modern day society through digitalization, social media, etc. And I get it, and I share your frustration with that, because I think you can easily get led down a road that actually deep down inside is not you, it's somebody else's, but you think that that's a good idea or that you should be doing that. And I get that frustration, but let me play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is the thing about human performance and team performance that is universally relevant. And it ties in with our 5 principles of high-performing teams, which also ties into the 5 dysfunctions of a team, a famous book and a famous model.
Yeah.
But it's the same principles and it's the same thing. And right at the top of that triangle is results focused. I need to visualize and set my targets on achieving results. And people and individuals and teams who do that and remain results focused and tend to progress in some way. So what I'm saying here is, I agree with you. At 14, 15 years old, you don't know your ass from your elbow, right? You don't know what you want to do. In fact, if you think about it, between 15 and 25, we need to do a load of things that we're crap at and we don't want to do just to find out what we might want to do. So I believe in the process of that. And I always say to young people, you don't have to be crystal clear now, but at least have some goals, because if that takes you down a road where you learn skills and you throw yourself into experiences, and at the end of that you go, that's definitely not for me. That is part of the process, and that is a life lesson. So I don't get as frustrated with it as you, purely on the premise that I think it's part of the process. So if I watch social media and everybody's starting a software development business, everybody's coding or gaming, and I think that's the way I'm going to make my money, and I go down that road for 2 years and it turns out I hate it and I'm crap at it, that's a valuable process. But at least I'm being influenced to set some type of goal. Does that make sense?
It does, and I totally agree with you. I do totally agree with you. But this is the difference: is you make your own goals, but you use those people as a motivation and an influence. So you see these people doing what they do. It's like, let's say, for the sake of argument, we'll talk about Steve Jobs. Just a name out of the air, right? Okay. So we look at Steve Jobs. We can use Steve Jobs as an influence, and we can use Steve Jobs as motivation. I don't want to do exactly what Steve Jobs did, because that's what Steve Jobs did. However, what I can do is I can take a lot from his success and make it mine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying is, I'm not having a go at influencers. I'm not having a go at motivations. This is something. I'll tell you something now. I'll share something with you now, and I hope you don't burst out. No, you will burst out laughing.
I'm already laughing.
I look on Instagram, and I use people on Instagram to influence and motivate me to physically work out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't use men. I use women.
Yeah, I hope Sharon's not listening.
Oh, she's fully aware. It's because it's not a conscious effort, because I know there's people on there, there's men on there who are body beautiful, who are very, very capable, and that is what they do, and they've done it really well, and they've found success there. That's great. I am never going to achieve that. When I'm looking at a 34-year-old ripped bloke who is teaching me who is showing a workout or whatever to do, I'm never going to achieve that.
Yeah, I was going to say, working with one is hard enough, isn't it?
Oh, hey.
Less of the rips these days.
I am never going to. But what I do is I look at lots of women.
Yeah. So what we're saying, Spencer, bringing it sort of back on track is, a lot of people fire bullets at influencers and social media and a lot of the motivational quotes and pictures and videos and all the rest of it. And there's millions of them. Absolutely, there's millions of them. But when we look at the principles, the laws of success for individuals and teams, based on either our 5 principles of high-performing teams or the 5 dysfunctions of a team, whatever it might be, they're all similar. Trust, accountability, commitment, results-focused, all of that type of stuff, managing conflict. right at the top of every pyramid is what we call challenge state mindset, which is those people who are driven to an endeavor to achieve something that they're visualizing, that's creating the law of attraction that never goes away, or it doesn't go away until you get to the point where you've either achieved it or whether you decide that actually it's not for me. So I think you're absolutely right. I think setting goals, even if you don't fully understand why you're setting them, even if you've been influenced by the outside in or Instagram or whatever it might be, I would rather that in any human being than somebody drifting with zero goals. I think the more toxic side to be on is that no man's land where I'm not working towards anything and I don't have anything, I've not lit the touch paper on anything. I've not got excited about anything. I'm just drifting. In fact, those people are the ones who become overly negative about the people who set goals and go on Instagram and put stuff out. So I just think it's like, yes, sometimes we can look at the younger generation, or we look at our kids, or we look at people and say, you're just following. Why do you want to be? I mean, my daughter's like this. She watches all the TikTok dances and she watches the Instagram stuff. And then she's like, when I grow older, I want to be, a dancer. I want to be an actress and all. And it changes from week to week, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what she's watched, it changes. But I never, ever, ever tell her that that's never going to happen or burst her bubble or anything. I have a conversation with her, and my answer is always the same. Well, to be honest, darling, you can be anything you want to be. Now, that is because if something in her mind is firing up about going, I'm getting excited about the potential of achieving something. I'm sat there, Spence, half the time going, it ain't going to happen, right?
Yeah, in your head.
In my head.
In your head, yeah.
But I understand the value of it at her age and what it's doing for her already in terms of that goals, that results-driven focus. And I think being a challenge state person, as our life's work is going to amount to, Spence. If we leave this planet and we've instigated a challenge state mindset in 500,000 people, we've done our job.
Certainly.
That is all about, at times, Spence, being influenced into setting goals.
Yes, I agree with you, Martin. But no, it's not a but. Those goals need to be authentically yours.
Do you think?
I think so.
Because this is what I'm saying. If it serves a purpose in creating the law of attraction, which creates a series of events that you commit to, even if the end game is, I've gone down a rabbit hole here that I should never have gone down because, quite frankly, I'm not built like those gymnasts on telly, or I'm not, I don't want to be this, that, and the other. I still think there's a value to that.
I think there's a value to that as long as you take accountability of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
As long as you turn around and say, you know what, I was influenced by this person, I was influenced by this particular situation or whatever. However, I have not achieved. That's my mistake.
And to your point, which I will back you on, as long as after 2 or 3 rounds of this, it thrusts you into a series of thinking that says, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've followed my mate who did this. That didn't work out for me. I tried to start that business because everyone online was doing it and that didn't work for me. As long as you will reach a natural point, which I think everybody does at different ages, where you go, so what should I be doing? What do I want to do? What do I feel passionate about? What am I good at? What can I earn money from?
Yeah.
As long as you start that Ikigai process, the Ikigai model can I earn money from it? Do I love it? Am I bloody good at it, right? Yeah. As long as I can tick all those boxes, then I think you reach that stage at sometimes 18, sometimes 21, more often than not 25 plus.
Yeah.
Probably in your 30s, right? Very few find the call in early doors. So I think you're right. I think you naturally reach that authenticity around goals through a series of learning what you're crap at or what you shouldn't be doing or what everyone else is doing that you don't want to be following, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that process is a valuable process. It's when you get into that later stage, Spence, and you're not learning. You're still continuing to jump on the bandwagon and the next big thing and what other people are doing. You've got to find your own calling, but I don't believe you get that. I don't know how old you were, but I mean, when you spent all your, 22 years in the RAF from being a 16-year-old boy, what age was you when you genuinely found what you wanted to do, when you genuinely felt like, actually, I am now doing something I actually love, I'm good at, and I believe in?
When did I start working here?
but that's a salient point because
Yeah.
you had a great career in the RAF. You was an engineer.
Yeah.
Your brain is very much wired to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
You're analytical, you're methodical, right? Process driven, inputs, all that type of stuff. So I would say for those years you spent as an engineer, you were pretty good at it because it played to your strengths. You were in your comfort zone a lot. And yeah, it was good. I think coming out of the military and doing what we do now, you entered into a completely different zone. That zone you talk about, that's just beyond your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think then you come alive. And I was the same. I spent all my early career out of the military, after the military, in sales. And I loved sales, but it definitely wasn't my calling forever. And I thought, I'm going to be sales forever. I'm going to be a sales director. I'm going to move around from company to company. And it was only when I got into consulting and learning development and working with human beings and understanding the human form and helping improve performance that actually I thought, now this is my calling. But I was probably 31, Spence, when I got into this. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. I guess what you're saying is authenticity is key, but you sort of semi-agree with me that the process of following and being influenced has its purpose.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. But what you've got to make that differentiation between if you're being authentically you and you are influenced and motivated by the actions of others, rather than trying to replicate those people. If you copied somebody totally,
Yeah.
and then you were successful, it won't be your success.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you copy somebody and then fail, and then or don't succeed, don't achieve, don't turn around and say, "Well, that's their fault."
Oh, no,
Because if you don't take accountability for your failures to succeed, then it's not your lesson to learn. So you'll just keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and you'll never progress.
There's a saying I said at a conference recently. I say recently, it was probably 2 years ago now. Last time I stood on a stage. I mean, we've been doing the virtual conferences, haven't we? But
Yeah.
do you know what? On that note, I can't wait to get back into an auditorium on a stage with that buzz with 400 or 500 people in the audience. Yeah, absolutely. But I remember I stood at a conference once and I finished on this line, and it sort of ties into what we're saying. I think we've come full circle on this notion. And I think I said something like, it's no longer our ability to influence others that counts. It's our ability not to be influenced that really counts. And I said that in the context of this digital world we live in, that the fake news, the sensationalism from the media, the amount of information that's out there that you can consume, not knowing the origins of the source. And I think, to your point, it's in our faces. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The Jenners being billionaires off. All this type. Reality TV stars, all this type of stuff. And it's like, I think for young people, it's going to be more about their ability not to be influenced that will really matter. And despite everything we've said around the learning, journey and that. As long as you're setting goals, even if you're being influenced, then it's it's a process that's going to serve you well. I think not being influenced is a big thing, and that's only comes with a level of brain maturity or brain function and maturity. So when you're in your teens and your 20s, it's hard not to be influenced. I don't think you have the amount of memories in your locker and the experience and cognitive brain function that's required to be able to filter that out and think completely on your own. I think generally, as we know from what we know from neuroscience and experience, that comes probably later in your 30s and 40s. But your ability not to be influenced, which says, this has got me excited and I like this, and it's actually motivated me into action. But that's not for me. What does this mean for me?
Yeah.
What do I stand the best chance of doing, and what's going to give me the greatest fulfillment?
Yeah.
But that takes intervention, doesn't it? That takes cognitive intervention, not just to go be influenced and completely go down a line of thinking that may or may not end up working well for us.
Yeah.
So, I think you're absolutely right, but I don't think people get that until 30s beyond.
No, but I was going to say, we're not going to have many teenagers listening to this podcast.
So you think?
Well, There we go. Yeah.
However, your Jed's listening to this right now, going, Dad.
But what I'm saying is, the people who are listening to this, the people who are going to be in certain situations, who may be in a situation where, you know what, we've had a little bit of a reality check with the present situation. We're right at the beginning of 2021. Right, okay, I understand I'm not going to set resolutions. I'm going to start setting goals. But what are these goals going to look like for me? And it's got to be that authentic goal, because you're going to be inspired. You're going to be motivated. Somebody's going to do something out there that's going to light a spark underneath you.
Yeah.
I mean, I could turn around to you and I could say, who were your inspirations when you were 16, when you were 25, when you were 32? You know what I'm saying?
And they probably change.
Yeah, they probably change. And obviously that's a sort of a level of maturity, experience. It's down to your own unconscious motivators and your own sense of purpose, and it's all linked. But you are you, and I'm so happy that you're the only one. Do you know what I mean? And nobody's going to turn around. I'm
sure there's a hidden compliment in there.
Nobody's going to turn around and say, "Oh, Martin Johnson, yeah, he's good, but he's just a poor man's whatever." It's like Bublé, isn't it?
Yeah, you love him or you hate him.
Well, yeah, but you might like Bublé. I quite like Bublé. I think he's got his place. I know he's back in his cave now because it's after Christmas. But some people will turn around and say he's a poor man's Frank Sinatra. He's not him.
But he's got an identity.
Yes,
Absolutely. I did a personal branding survey recently where I asked 100 people to describe me in 3 words. And just 3 words. You can't comment on why you've picked them or elaborate. Just 3 words.
You didn't ask me though, did you?
No, I didn't, because I work so closely with you guys that I wanted to diversify a little bit. Because
Okay.
I just got a load of jit from you lot. So anyway, the top 5 answers were all, as you would expect, for the line of work that I do, and generally because I'm a bit of a raving lunatic, it was high energy, inspiring, knowledgeable, driven, passionate, all that type of stuff. But what came, and then I had a few like hidden agenda ones, which was like strong-minded, which was code for stubborn, or loud, which was code for tone it down a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had all these. But what I was really happy with was in about 8th or 9th place with about 15 responses was authentic. And I didn't expect that. But the more I've reflected on it, it was the one I really liked the most, that people actually go, you are you. You're real. What you see is what you get. Yes, I swear when I deliver on stages. Yes, I can't help it. But I like the fact that people recognise it's sincere and from the heart, and it's me, and I aren't putting it on. What I am here is what I am at home with my wife and kids, as my wife will vouch for. And authentic is a great word, Spence. And I think to finish this podcast, I think you raise a valid point and it gets people thinking, what's your authenticity? What is authentic about you? And whether you're young and you haven't reached that point where you can answer that yet, because I don't think I could have answered that. And actually, I'm so different from my early 20s. I don't think in my early 20s I was my authentic self. I think I was searching for it. I think I had a bit of bravado. I think I was, projecting to the world something that probably wasn't always mirrored inside. Whereas now I can honestly say, I'm going to say into my 40s almost, right? I know, right? I believe that I am. And so it takes time. So don't be deterred. But it's when you reach that point where you can go, what you see is what you get. And I am being true to myself and I'm authentic. And now I'm chasing after what I really want. That's a magical time, right?
And you find that when you're being authentic, you spend more time in your best self than you do your shadow self.
Yeah, because you're not having to mask anything or put your... these people who say to us all the time, Spence, I'm different in work to what I am at home. When I walk in the workplace, I put my mask on, my professional, it's not sustainable.
No.
And you'll get found out, right? It's much easier to be authentic.
Yeah.
Right, Spence, we've only got a couple of minutes left before we're both in different calls and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really useful discussion. I think there's some salient points in there.
Yeah.
Links to our last podcast.
Yeah.
Any final comments?
I'm just thinking you can be inspired and motivated by the successes of others, but you've got to learn. You can learn from them, but your goals need to be yours. Yeah, and it's just like you've got to take that responsibility and accountability as much for your failures as you do for your successes, because that means that you're learning. And I hate saying failure because I'm trying to change my sort of talk track now. It's not win or lose; it's win or learn.
Yeah, it is, but it depends on who you are. Failure is a part of life.
Yeah.
Suffering is a part of life. I don't think we should hide from the word and reframe it. I just think you've got to understand that actually what's my response to it.
That's the thing, is it when you look at failure, and if you view failure as a negative, or you see the same thing as an opportunity to learn, right, okay, yeah, it's still failure. I'm not trying to get rid of the word failure, but what I'm saying is use it as a tool.
Yeah, reframe it. Absolutely. Awesome. Right, Spence.
Martin.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
And we'll be back shortly with another T2 Hubcast.